In Uganda, the opposition leader there, Bobi Wine, his party says they'll be challenging President Yoweri Museveni's election victory. On Saturday, the Electoral Commission in that country declared the 76-year-old the winner of Thursday's election, saying he had won 59% of the vote compared to 35% for Wine. But Wine's party says the opposition leader and his wife have been attacked and have been unable to leave their home because it's surrounded by soldiers and police. The US and Britain have issued statements calling for investigations into reports of fraud during the electoral process, but Museveni, who's been in power since the mid-1980s, says the election was the most free and fair in Uganda's history.
We have evidence of ballot stuffing and other forms of election malpractice. And after putting together, we are going to take all measures, I repeat, all measures that the law permits to challenge this fraud. Honorable Chagulanyi is not allowed to receive any visitors at his home. Party members and leaders cannot meet him to dialogue on very important matters of the party and take decisions. And the family is not allowed to access groceries on their own, let alone get from friends and family outside his residence.
We're live to Uganda now. Emmanuel Matizabwa is a politics and investigations editor at NTV Uganda. Emmanuel, good afternoon to you. Firstly, the situation around Bobi Wine. Are those soldiers still outside his house this afternoon?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, viewers. Yeah, we are aware that there's still the security deployment at the home of Bobi Wine, who came second in this election and announced that this perhaps is the most rigged election in the history of elective politics in Uganda since 1962. What we're aware is that the Ugandan security forces are accusing Bobi Wine of attempting to incite an insurrection if he's let free from his house. He's being kept at his home since election day. He's been denied visitors, and the army has kept watch over his home, not a very long distance from the city in a place called Magere, barely about 20 kilometers outside the city, and he's being held there with his wife. Not even his supporters have been allowed to access him at his home.
So they say that they're holding him there because he might create an insurrection, yet I mean, from what you're saying, they haven't lodged charges, they haven't arrested him, they haven't started any court process.
Definitely, there's been no legal process until now. But as you're aware, this election was carried out under a cloud of fear and apprehension. What we've heard are pronouncements from the president that a neighboring state and foreign powers are trying to meddle in the affairs of the country.
Emmanuel, I don't know if you're still with me or if that image seems to have frozen. It does appear that it's frozen. We're going to try and get Emmanuel back. I think, Emmanuel, you are back with us now, live from Uganda. What are ordinary Ugandans saying about this election? I mean, do they agree with President Yoweri Museveni that it was the freest and fairest election ever in Uganda, or do they agree with Bobi Wine that it was a stolen election?
Well, there's mixed reaction. There's a mixed reaction. Definitely from the supporters of the president, they claim the election was free and fair. But from those of the opposition and general observers, first and foremost, this election was conducted under a climate of fear and apprehension. The army was deployed, tanks were rolled out. Kampala, which is the capital city, was under the command structure of generals who were one time deployed in Mogadishu, where Uganda has its contingency force trying to fight the Al-Shabaab insurgents. So you may not entirely say that the election was free and fair in that context. Then secondly, as you're aware, there was a total internet shutdown. So the process, the transparency, the delivery of results, one can argue was not within the ambit of what someone can say was extremely transparent. The ability to verify these things, and and earlier on you had asked whether there's been any due court process, to take on Bobi Wine. That hasn't happened, as you're aware, since election day. He continues to be detained at his home, and the army keeps a 24-hour presence right outside his home.
I mean, Bobi Wine now really has very few options. He can't actually do anything, can he? I mean, At the same time, I've got to ask, I mean, are people in Uganda feeling free to speak their mind? I mean, are you free to do the reporting you want to do? If someone shuts down the internet, it makes it very difficult.
Well, definitely there's a chilling effect about this entire process. There's self-censorship, I guess, in the newsrooms. Bobi Wine himself is not free because he remains under some kind of house arrest. But I would like to say that we've seen a pattern in this regard, that every election cycle, if I'm to use 2016 as an example, Dr. Kizza Besigye, the opposition doyen, barely after he challenged the result in 2016 and announced that he believed he had won the election and he wanted to carry out a swearing-in ceremony. I don't know how legal that was going to be. He was also placed under house arrest for a number of days. So we've seen a pattern in this regard, and no one knows when the state is going to allow Bobi Wine move out freely. And what is also very important in this context is you only have about 15 days to go to the Supreme Court, which is the highest appellate court, to challenge the election results. So you're required to gather evidence, you're required to get affidavits, and you're required to do a lot of things so that you're able to table cogent evidence in the courts of law. So definitely is constrained. He cannot move out of his house, and this is going to have implications in his ability if he seeks to challenge the result in the courts of law.
I mean, President Museveni's been president since 1986. I mean, I think most people in Africa weren't actually born then. I think most Ugandans might not have been born then. The point I'm making is that he really has tight control over the police, the army, the other levers of power in Uganda.
Definitely. And you know, in Uganda, the power is largely exercised through the superstructure of the military, because as you're aware, the history of Uganda is Museveni launched a bush war and he came to power after 5 years after the bush struggle. And the other very important context is Uganda has perhaps one of the youngest populations on earth. About 70% is below the age of 30. Now, this population, the story of Yoweri Museveni fought his bush war has little resonance with the young population. A young population that is disillusioned, a young population that needs jobs, a young population, you know, that requires to be part and parcel of this governance. And as you're aware, many of the colleagues in cabinet, the president's colleagues, are people who are old. There are less opportunities for the young people, and the young people feel a bit quite excluded from government. Now, it's not just entirely Uganda that's facing this kind of challenge where, you know, it's, you know, quite problematic to find proper employment for the youth. So the story of the bush struggle has today very little resonance, and this is the challenge. So Bobi Wine comes in, he's youthful, he has this, you know, powerful story from the ghetto. He gains traction with the young people, and this is a kind of, in my view, protest vote in this regard.
Emmanuel Maitizibwa, thank you very much indeed. The Politics and Investigations Editor at NTV Uganda. I really do appreciate the time.